Welcome back, everybody, to the BSG Lustrum, and we are just about to get started with our closing run, and we have a very, very special run and runner, especially for this particular closer. I'm joined here by Jasper, and we'll talk about why he has been so significant over basically everything that you've seen over the past few
another
years.
one.
In
This
just a
one
moment, but I'm
says,
just going to let him introduce himself
"Welcome
and
home."
talk a little bit about the game, and then I think we're just going to get started, and we've got plenty of time to talk about everything else right after. So,
Yep, for sure.
Jasper?
This is it. This is where the Strays
I'm
built their
Jasper. I'm going to
village.
be playing a
And
story
what a
of
beautiful
I'm assuming
place
game
they
feed is
chose.
live by now.
Just look
Yep,
at the
it is.
sky.
Okay.
It is
So,
big.
in this game, in the very early days, people figured out that this game kind of breaks very hard if you lower your FPS, and then because this is a title that was built on the Source engine, most Source engine games have a or a developer console where you can change certain things. So somebody figured out that you could actually bind a key to lowering your FPS. So if I press this key, I currently have about 3 to 4 FPS. But I can toggle it on and off. If I use that in combination with my grappling hook, which, by the way, shout out to Recalled, sounds like a goat. And there's gonna be a couple of other sounds that might sound very hilarious. If you combine them, you basically get this, where you just fly off into space. So yeah, basically because of the broken physics, the grappling hook gets a lot more momentum, and I release it as it's pulling me forward, and it just keeps going. So with that, we can start flying, and with that, I'm just gonna go back to the main menu and start the game. I'll let you know when time starts. It's kind of an awkward moment, but it should be okay. Let's go. I'll start new game. First, it's just gonna go through some cutscene stuff, and I'll let you know when we can start.
Dad, I can't sleep.
Sure thing.
Can you tell me a bedtime story?
All right. What do you want to hear?
Something about an adventure.
I think I know just
The
the thing.
thing.
When I was your age, my biggest dream was to follow my Uncle Fred on one of his adventures around the world. One day, he disappeared.
Okay, and then in 3, 2, 1, go.
I stepped into the lobby of my uncle's house. It lay just across the hill from where I lived with my mother, your grandmother.
So the first
She
level in
had
the game
tried to
is
keep me from
very,
going,
very, very
but I
simple.
wanted to
It's
see
just walking through this
see if
house.
Fred was
That
home
item
yet
is
from his latest
interactable,
adventure.
but we don't need it. What we do need
I had
is this
visited Uncle
special
Fred's
adventure
house
suit right here.
countless
So I'm gonna click that,
times.
equip
But
it,
in the locker,
and we're
which
gonna keep
usually
going.
was closed, I found
So since this
something I
first level
hadn't
is
seen before.
just walking around pretty
It was an
much,
adventure
I've
suit.
already mentioned on
Resembled the one
stream
that Fred
that
used.
there is a big reason that
Smaller
you're
in
here
size.
as the closing
Curiosity
runner.
got the better of me, and I tried it on.
Tell us, or for
It
all the newer
fit
people here
like
at
it had been
BSG,
custom
who
made
is
for me.
Jasper?
The most
Okay, so well,
mysterious
I'm
moon
a
of
very,
my
very
uncle's
retired
house was the
speedrunner that hasn't
observatory.
played
There he
speedruns
kept
in
his newest experiments,
in forever,
and right
but
now, it held a pad
essentially
used for
I've
disposing
been
of
involved in
garbage.
BSG for quite a while. I've as Rule mentioned, if people were there for that, for at least for BSG, I've been one of the main organizers and founder basically. But we did find BSG out of a different Dutch event, so I was involved with them before. And yeah, from there, I basically ran BSG for a while, and because of some personal reasons and me just needing to take a break from everything, I stepped away and luckily left it in very, very, very capable hands.
Yeah,
I
so
think that's it for the introduction.
I landed with a crash, but thanks to the suit, I wasn't hurt. I had no idea
Yeah, so
where the path
in many ways,
back then.
you're kind of the person that
care so much
started
about where I was
BSG the way that we know BSG as it is.
Yep, and I'm messing up something really a lot. But yeah, BSG as it is was basically founded by me and Rule, at least the current iteration of it.
Carved symbols, but who?
Yeah, Rule, who the people who've been around today a little bit more might remember we talked to him earlier today about his experiences with BSG and all of the early days, so to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
The power core
So you
found
mentioned
activated
BSG kind of
super
started
rapid
from
device
another
called
organization,
It must have been left
NLG.
here by my uncle.
How did you end up with NLG in the first place?
That's
There is-
kind of a funny story. Essentially, when I started speedrunning, I was looking into marathons, so I basically found GDQ, and eventually from that, I found ESA. And ESA at the time was being organized by Ledendi, Swedish speedrunning community, or they were. I don't know if they exist anymore, at least not in their form as they were then. But they had a Halloween event. They had a Halloween marathon, just a very small marathon. But as I was in that chat, I found out that there were a couple of Dutch runners, including KVD, one of the main people around at NLG. And I basically just PM'd him out of the blue and went, hey, I noticed you're Dutch, and I noticed you guys have a couple runs in the event. Could I maybe, like, show up and hang out? And they were very welcoming and just went, yeah, sure, here's the address. We both had no clue who we were, just met in that chat for like 5 minutes, and I just went.
So was the which this was the very first
You're not
NLG,
from
wasn't it, or was it late?
This was a
look just like
Ludendi
Fred, but
Halloween
smaller.
event.
And with
Right,
little hair
right.
on
Had
your
already
face.
existed. They did a
She
big
knew Fred.
marathon back in
told her that he was
2012,
my
and they
uncle,
did some
I was
monthly
looking
events,
for
which
him.
were basically just
What's
friend
up,
meetups
uncle?
where they did speed
I
runs,
said
high
that he
score
was-
events,
That I had known him all my life.
party games. Like they would usually close the night with Mario
Really?
Party or
Me
whatever
too.
on
I
Saturday.
hope you find it.
They were just a group of friends
I'm
that were
Madeline.
having fun and
The others
showing
call
off
me
some of their
Mad
speed
Maddie
running skills and
sometimes.
generic gaming skills.
I don't know why, really. But you can call me Maddie. You've never been to the village, right?
Yeah, and from there,
Let's meet over there in the square.
when I
I'll show
met
you
them,
around.
that was
I
a
bet
very
you
nice
can get there
experience,
easily
and
with your suit thing.
they said they
So,
had the NLG
I'll see you
minis
there.
going on pretty much every month. So
I
from
couldn't
there,
believe it.
I
An
started joining
underground
those as well,
village
and
inhabited by frog people.
I just showed up every month
More like
and eventually
sound
started taking
animals.
over their
Either way,
technical department
Walk like
because
humans, they talk
as
like
much as they
humans.
definitely got their stream up and running, they used like just a webcam and like
Darkness swept
a
over me
gaming
as I
headset
left
as a
the lights
microphone
in
and
the
just
village
laid it
behind
down
me
somewhere, and
and headed for the
that was
ominous
it.
shadows of
So
the chasms.
you can imagine there was quite the room for improvement there, especially when you're doing a multi-people
As I
marathon.
entered the chasm, it struck me how much darker it was. in
So
there.
from there, I
The shadows
eventually
were
grew and
black as ink. And
Stitch,
although I
a
tried
member
not to be
of
afraid,
Awesome Space,
I couldn't
eventually
help but shake with the
contacted one of the
darkness
NLG people
that frightened the
about
villagers as
maybe
well.
expanding their
Some
speedrun events towards Awesome Space.
Your mic is cutting out a little bit there, by the way. So
Okay. I'll move it in a second when I'm not doing a
sure thing.
glitch. There we go. Probably just need to move it into my mouth. This is a checkpoint. I'll move it real quick. Is this
You're not
better?
scared, are you?
So far it seems to be yes.
Not.
Okay, great. So yeah, we got to NOG. Those events happened. I just lost like 30 to 40 seconds to triggering that, so I have plenty of time to explain this. The NOG events started to grow bigger. More people started showing up, but the people that were running BH or NLG basically wanted to keep it a social event mainly, and didn't want to bother with donations and like really trying to grow it, trying to pull new people in. And Yeah,
You did it!
in that sense, we
You're
just had
awesome.
different
I knew you could.
aspirations. So as NLG kept going on, I just kept looking at ESA and GDQ and going like, hey, we can definitely do that in the Netherlands and do it for a good cause and maybe really grow out and become a big event
Oh,
and just
another one.
have a lot more
This
people show
one
up and
says,
try and
"Welcome
integrate the Dutch
home."
speedrunning community and try and band them together a bit more because there's definitely a lot of Dutch speedrunners, but not a lot of them interact with each other,
This
and
is it.
I feel like that's
This is
still
where the strikes built that
largely the
village.
case.
And what a beautiful
So there's
place
definitely
it
still wins to
shows.
be made there.
Just look at the
Oh,
sky.
absolutely.
It is
But yeah, this is kind of what started the entire transition from NLG to BSG, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. I talked to the guys. Some of them were open to growing, but some of them were more held back. And I just felt like, hey, I don't want to get in your guys' hairs. It's definitely your event. You should do it however you want. But if this is what you want and this is what I want, we should probably part ways and just do our own thing separately. So yeah, eventually, as that thought was forming more and more, I talked to Rule and a couple of the Awesome Space guys, as I'd gotten fairly familiar with them, and they went like, yeah, you should probably just go for it. So that went over. Obviously, there was some rubbing here and there, especially as I eventually asked them like, hey, can we keep using the channel and whatever. But I think in the end, it went over pretty well, and I have to say I am infinitely thankful for KVD, Party Star, Meridian Prime, WMJ, and everyone that was involved with all the NLG events. They were great. The
wait a minute.
Mario Kart community had been a big part of it.
I don't know if I
And
should go with you. I mean,
If
I
not
want
for
to,
them,
but
the Dutch speedrunning community would
stay here.
definitely not be what it is today.
But I just feel
Oh
like
yeah,
those people
absolutely.
like me
Those
and
people
accept
definitely
me
kind of
as who I
laid the
am.
groundworks
Kinda like
for
you.
For sure.
pretty
I
much
want to be with you
everything you
too.
see
I help you
nowadays that
find
is
track.
BSG and the way that
I don't
we
know what I want.
show off
I
speedrunning
told Madeline
in and
that I
around the
would accept
Netherlands.
whatever choice she made.
Yeah, and let me not forget Sargoff, by the way. He's not a Dutch runner, but he's a... I don't want to say it wrong, but I think he's from Norway.
Maybe I was
But
just
he
looking for a way
basically was one of the founders of
And I know
NLG,
that
Next
if
Level
anyone can find Fred,
Gaming Organization,
it's you.
because
If you
that
meet him,
is a
when you meet
multinational
him, tell him to come
group,
see me,
basically.
I
Although most
promised.
of it is being ran out of the Netherlands.
you.
But he's
I'm
been a major
glad I
part
met
of
you.
them, for sure.
And it won't be the same without you around.
So what was
Yeah,
that
for-
like?
Goodbye.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Finish your story. I'm kind of just interrupting.
Goodbye.
Oh, no, I was
had a
basically
feeling
done
this was
with
the
the
last
sentence
time.
anyway. So go ahead.
To transition
moment,
from
I was happy for her.
being
She
just
found
part
a
of the
place
tech
where she
crew,
belonged.
basically, or basically doing the tech from NLGs to being
There was a dampness in
organizer
air that
of
reminded me
BSG.
of the hot summer nights back home. But
It
as the
was definitely
sun
a
was
transition,
setting,
but
could
I feel
the
like
chill creeping up on
it
me.
kind of
And
came
the
just
path
naturally
we were
because
traveling on seemed
I mean
to
I
lead us
I'd
into a
seen
second ice
so
age.
much of it happen
Winter
that
was coming.
it kind of was just like, okay, so this all needs to change. This all needs to happen, but especially for the first little bit, the NLG guys were definitely still involved. So it was more of the same, just in a different kind of flavor and with different goals in mind. So it wasn't as abrupt a transition. So that definitely helped. But there was definitely a lot more involved with trying to grow BSG towards eventually the being able to do donations for the Dutch Cancer Society and being able to do the annual event, because that was definitely a massive undertaking that I think we can both admit was underestimated to the maximum degree.
Absolutely. No questions asked. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the our very first annual event, because that was quite the story.
Wait for 1 second, because this fling is not going very well right now. Come on. This fling can be quite troublesome if you can't line it up right. Come on. Okay. So what am I trying to achieve here? Can I back this up somehow? I hope so. No, that's unsavable. I'm very sorry. Turn off the audio thing. Hold on. There we go. Scope mode is off. This should be way less annoying now. There we go. I finally got the fling I wanted, and it's a good one as well. Took way too long, but... Let me just back this up. Okay, I'm free to talk again. We're through the annoying part.
Yeah. Like I do want to get to the annual events, but I wanted to stick to the early BSG days a little bit longer, so we kind of go through them, go through everything that's happened over the years in a somewhat logical order. So the early BSG days, and this is kind of where I come into the picture for the first time as well. A lot happened there. We went from I mean, for me, I just started as a runner. I still remember meeting KVD. I still remember Meridian Prime, as well as a few others. To then slowly transition into a bigger marathon. What for you feels like was the biggest, or was there any big moment early on where you were like, yeah, this is a significant change compared to how it was in the NLG days?
I think it's mostly we just set our goals differently. The NLG days were more, although other people could supply their runs and they had something up on speedrun.com. They were definitely not trying to find new members. They were perfectly content with just
at the end of the tunnel,
being their small little friend group and just doing their thing forever. So that changed massively with BSG, where I tried to go around, find ditch runners and tell people like, hey, feel free to reach out to friends and see if they can just if we can grow this, if we can make it bigger, because we were definitely with the NLG days falling into the pitfall of just having of the same, and that also reflected in the audience. As for an example, KVD and WMJ and the likes were very big in the Mario Kart community and also in the F-Zero community, so they had a lot of events revolving those games, and they even had like Mario Kart tournaments where just the whole weekend was dedicated to Mario Kart. And as much as that's very welcome and that's very healthy for those communities, you'd see their viewers just drop in as those games came in and immediately drop back out, and it was not very interesting to watch for a more generic audience and for more generic runners, because if you don't care about Mario Kart, you're not going to show up to an entire week of Mario Kart.
Yeah.
So that definitely shifted. The idea of trying to apply to a more broad audience and trying to broaden out the horizon in terms of runs, variety, runners, and everything like that. I think that was the most major change that was made basically right away.
What does research or praise matter when I can
Yeah, for sure. I remember coming in. I think I was the somewhere I feel like I would like for the first time brought in like some RPG genres. We had a few platforming things at the start, but it was the early days
with him and Maddie instead.
Still had quite a significant amount of like Mario Kart and F-Zero and whatnot, which in quite a contrast to the more recent BSGs, I imagine.
reluctant.
That's definitely true. And although I love me some racing games, that I do feel like variety
But I'm sure you'll
is
do
a spice of life that is
phenomenally.
very important to the health of events and streams and everything like that. Like, people are just gonna tune out if it's more of the same every time.
So from there, I kind of want to go to. Okay, so we've been running at that point. BSG had been up and running for a little while. I remember a somewhat of a staff team slowly starting to take shape, which is when I myself became a bit of a more significant part as well. And then we went to
The
actually
end.
doing charities
No.
and
Good night, sweetie.
Wait, Dad.
and all that
Does
stuff.
that mean Fred is still
What was
there?
that step
Who
like for you?
knows? That was the last time I saw
I
him.
think the step
Don't you
towards
miss him?
charity was very natural. The main issue we had,
Because I know that
and I'm sure
wherever
Recold
he
can
is,
can very
he's on
much
his
agree with
biggest
this, was
adventure
actually
yet.
getting the donation tracker up and running. That was
Dear Fred,
quite
remember-
the event.
I spent
Yeah,
weeks
I
alone
remember
in the
that
house
took
for the
a
last
fair
time.
couple of hours,
My daughter,
and
asked me
especially
to
on your
tell
part,
her
if not
about
days,
an
I think,
adventure.
for you to get that.
Yeah, I think it took me a couple weeks of figuring out how it worked. Getting it up and running already took a while, but then
The house looks
the
just
system
like my
basically
mother
only
left it.
only supported
years
dollars
ago.
and Canadian dollars because
After
it
you'd
was built
gone,
for
I
AGDQ
was sure she was
and
going to
SGDQ
throw
and
out all
GDQ
your
events,
stuff,
basically. Also, time's
but
coming
she
up in like
just cleaned up.
20 to 30 seconds.
We made you a small memorial.
But yeah,
For a while,
we took
I
that
seen you
system
every day,
because it
just
works
like I
very well.
used to.
ESA uses it as well, for
Sometimes
example.
I can even
But
faintly hear your
I
voice.
just refused to
calling
accept
from the
that
observatory,
Euroed was not going to be a thing.
asking
So
give you this tool or that.
I basically just
I never
didn't
told
give
my
up,
mother about that
kept
day.
going, found
I don't think she
everything
would
by
have
just
believed me.
using Control F and
Can I
searching
believe
for every reference to
After all
dollar
these
and just
years.
removing it, changing it to euro. Time, by the way. So yeah, when we got that going, and we had quite the experience with finding a charity as well. The first charity we contacted had some difficulty with accepting that we wanted to partner them. So then we went, well,
Uncle Fred,
guess not then
Next
if you
to
don't
you,
want our money. And
I found another
eventually
great adventure.
we picked a couple of charities that we felt like might be a good fit as a partner.
You're next.
Yeah, I remember
We,
the
we
part.
put it to a community vote.
Yeah, I remember the part of just one of the charities just flat out basically saying no to our money, which is
Yeah, I'm not gonna name any names because that's definitely not important. But
neither
that
will
was
I.
an experience. A charity going, no, we don't want your money. We want to select you first. Was like, well, fine. How about not then?
So yeah, first off, good job on the run. I know I've been distracting you a lot over the course of it.
It's
but still,
fine. I choked hard, but
still
at
a
least
very
it's still
solid
sub 19.
I do want to still talk to you about our first annual, some favorite moments, and a couple of other things. But I think we're going to switch to the actual interview layout for that.
Yep.
And once
Sounds
that's
good.
set up, continue our chat of the good old days of BSG. So yeah, chat. Do stay tuned, and we will be right back once we've got all of that set up, and you'll hear some more stories about how BSG kind of came to be and how we got where we are today.